Hi everyone, my name is Dumelo. I'm a global trade consultant. This video is about the structure of the international trade industry. This is part 3 of the topic. Please go to the page and listen to part 1 and part 2 so that you can follow through the conversation. In part 1, I mentioned that one needs to have a snapshot of what the industry looks like so that you are able to navigate your way through as you execute your international trade deal. In part 2, I mentioned that the industry comprises of both government sector as well as private sector. And these entities are there to provide various services for you to, as a business, to execute your global business. So in part 3, I am going to zoom into the public or government sector. So I have my laptop in front of me. I just put some notes because I want to make sure that I stay on the topic. So if I look down, just know that I'm just checking the points on my laptop um, as I go through the list. So the entities I'm going to mention are, are South African entities, government entities. So I'm gonna be speaking from a South African point of view. However, you will see that a lot of these entities are the same across the board. The names might differ here or there. Um, they generally offer the same types of services, right? So just apply this in your respective country. These entities I'm going to mention, it's not in any order of importance. Um, so let's get right into it. So I'm going to mention about 12 of government owned entities here. There could be more, and if there are more, please inbox me. I can that so that I can just add on to this content and talk about that one. The first one I'm going to mention is the South African Revenue Services. In South Africa, we call it SARS, SARS. Um, with SARS, I'm specifically focusing on the customs division, which deals with all things imports and exports. They offer many services. Um, I'm gonna just mention a few on a high level. So, as a customs division, they offer customs clearance. If you go to if you go to the port, could be the airport or seaport, you would find customs officials there who are available to assist you with your customs clearances, right? Um, globally, basically. So this department also offers registrations such as your importer and exporter registration. Prior to importing or exporting, you need to be registered or licensed. So this is loosely termed an import or export license, but in South Africa we call it importer or exporter registration. Very important for you to have in order for you to be able to import or export your goods without any hassles. And because, or they also offer, I just remembered something, they offer bonded warehouse registration. So for businesses that are able or prefer to have a warehouse or warehouses at the port, could be air or seaport or airport, where they can have their goods bonded in there. There's that option, but prior to operating a warehouse at the port, you need to have prior registration or license with the customs division, right? Then because the SARS or SARS customs, because they clear, they're responsible for clearance of goods in and out of the country. They have the information as to what products come into the country, the values, and all relevant information pertaining to those deals. So they offer trade statistics. Trade statistics basically speaks to uh, all commodities coming in and out of the country and or going out of the country. It speaks to volumes. You can even get more information if you want to, in terms of currency, rands or cents. Can get value in terms of rands, which is the South African currency. If you go to their website and you just Google customs and then type trade statistics, you will get information which will give you an idea as to which are the highest trading countries that we deal with in South Africa, or your respective country, which are the highest trading commodities. You will even see if we are a net exporter or net importer. Quite interesting. If you go to SARS website, you will see that South Africa has been a net exporter for quite a long time, even though people believe that we are net importers. We are not. So just check that fact on the website. So we actually in South Africa export more than we import. The next entity I'm going to mention is the South African Reserve Bank. In other countries, it is called the Central Bank. This is a very important entity. All of them are important, but this is also equally important because of the services that they offer. They provide banking licenses in the financial sector, and they also provide financial sector regulation, amongst other services. So they are responsible to provide various types of financial institutions with licenses, being commercial banks, mutual banks, cooperative banks, which is my passion. So they are quite key in that regard. From an import and export point of view, they are responsible for establishing the exchange control rules and regulations. These rules and regulations basically govern or guide us as to what is permissible and what is not permissible as far as imports and exports is concerned. So there's rules for individuals, rules for businesses, rules for financial institutions, and also rules for financial institutions, or what do they call it? EDLAs, authorized dealers with limited authority. So there are businesses that are not financial institutions per se, but they offer some financial services, such as payments. There are entities that offer payment services where individuals can send money abroad to their families, etc., without having a bank account. So they govern these entities. So the exchange control rules and regulations is a lot of pages, and they speak to many products. Foreign exchange, customer foreign currency accounts, export, imports, customs, and they guide us as to what is required when you import, what is required when you export, and a whole lot of things. So if you get a chance, you can visit the site and read on the rules and regulations. So actually, when you are importing or exporting, it's always best to either just be familiar with these rules and regulations, or be close to your consultant, or your international banker, or your freight forwarder, or customs clearance agent to assist and guide you to ensure that you comply. The next entity I'm going to discuss is Transnet. Transnet has a number of divisions. I'm going to mention 3 which are applicable for international trade. If there's more, again, please let me know. So I'm going to speak about Transnet Freight Rail, Transnet National Ports Authority, and Transnet Pipelines. So the Transnet Freight Rail is a division that is responsible for the rail infrastructure in the country. So if you grew up in the townships or villages in South Africa and even in other countries, you'll remember that there's usually like a railway track cutting through the township or village, and you would see still now, or saw it when you as a child, these freight wagons carrying steam coal or some kind of commodity at the back, and these trains are coming from somewhere going somewhere. Usually they are coming from the mines and transporting the commodity straight to the ports for exportation, usually the seaport for exportation. So Transnet Freight Rail is also responsible for infrastructure maintenance and development and everything that has to do with the freight with the rail infrastructure, right? Um, I actually would love to visit this division and see how it functions, because it's one thing to read about it and deal with this thing from when you're in the office, or dealing with documents or transactions pertaining to that. But it will be very exciting for me to visit Transnet Freight Rail and see the infrastructure and witness commodities being loaded on board the wagons and being moved to Durban Port or Richards Bay. And what's interesting is that in the ports, inside the ports at Durban, I saw that the railway tracks actually even extend right inside the ports. If you want to see the railway infrastructure, you can visit Transnet Freight Rail's website, which will show you the map of the railway structure infrastructure. I think the railway infrastructure even extends cross border to neighboring countries. All right. Um, I don't know exactly which countries. I don't want to speak on things I don't know, but definitely neighboring countries for exportation of commodities. I don't know about importation is also possible, but definitely exportation. Now the National Ports Authority, Transnet National Ports Authority, this is now the government entity that manages and maintains and runs the ports in the country. This last time I checked, there were about 9 ports, seaports, and I remember there was one that was currently which was under construction. I don't know how far they are now. So Transnet National Ports Authority can provide you with this information. You can check their website as well. So I think more than 80% of products are imported or exported via sea. So this is a very important entity, as it carries the bulk of the products in and out of the country. The what was I visited the Transport National Ports Authority once, and thank you for Transnet National Ports Authority, and they gave me a tour of the Durban port. I was very excited, and to also see that huge vessel standing in front of me, and seeing a special vessel that brings in vehicles, and I was particularly excited to go to the container terminal, and and it was interesting to see that happening on the ground, which is totally different from what we know international trade to be, as being a consultant in your office. And the lingo used there is also totally different from the lingo that we use, as consultants working in different organizations, in private organizations. So there it's very busy. You see trucks coming in to offload, trucks coming in to unload containers. You see trucks coming in, going through the customs officials and getting the documents stamped and things like that. There's also conveyor belt systems at the port, to offload the commodities um, from from the factories there. I'm gonna use the word factory for lack of a better term, into the vessel, right? So there's conveyor belt systems, which automates the offloading of commodities. And there's also warehouses, lots of warehouses there. Like I mentioned, for you to operate a warehouse there, you need to apply to have a bonded warehouse at SARS Customs Division. The next one here under Transnet is Transnet Pipelines. Wow. So let me just start by speaking on the content, and then I'm gonna just add something at the end. So commodities such as fuel and gas. So Transnet Pipelines, same as Freight Rail and National Ports Authority. So they also manage the pipelines infrastructure. Some of the pipes go underground, some of the pipes go on top above the ground. And I think, yes, actually, I know that some of the pipes extend to neighboring countries, right? And you can get the map of the pipelines infrastructure from Transnet, I think from their website. If not, you can just drop them an email. They can share that information with you. So, so yeah. So if you remember recently, there was an unfortunate incident that happened in Johannesburg in Bree Street, where there was an explosion from the pipes under the ground, and you can Google that. You'll see the explosion happening. So the pipes at this point in time, I don't know who the pipes belong to, whether they belong to Transnet Pipelines or whether they belong to a private company called Egoli Gas. And again, I'm very interested to learn about this division. I'm curious to see how they load the fuel or gas into the pipes, and how they move this commodity from one point to the other. The infrastructure of either entity, and who else also owns this type of infrastructure. If they cross each other, how do they separate different types of fuel, etc.? The speed at which it moves. So yes, I'm very curious and very interested to learn, so that I can share the knowledge and information. So enough on Transnet. So let's move on to the next one. South African Airways. It was previously 100% government owned. It was a state owned entity. However, things have since changed. So I don't know now what is the percentage ownership of who. And I think for the sake of this video, let's leave it under public sector government. Just for the sake of continuity. So there is goods that come in by air, and at the SAA, South African Airways, or any other airport in the country, especially the major ones, you will have a cargo terminal that deals with goods coming in and going out of the country. If you remember, in South Africa, there was a point where vaccines were imported. That scene where the president of South Africa went to the airport with his delegation, and the cargo plane landed, and they offloaded the stock, the vaccines, and the media was following them. So yeah, that was a cargo terminal, right? So there's a terminal for passengers, then there's a terminal for products. We'll speak about the vaccine thing one day, and the issues around that in terms of the product itself, its specification, and inspection on the product, right? So we'll speak about that one day, and also, of course, there are warehouses at the airport. What I also saw at the South African Airways, even the area around the airport, there's a whole lot of warehouses outside the airport, but surrounding the airport, which are operated by a lot of freight forwarders or businesses that are involved in imports and exports. The next one here is the Department of Roads and Transport. So a lot of products are moved on the road. So this department is responsible for the roads, infrastructure, maintenance, construction, etc. And at the borders, there is customs officials there for clearance of goods, right? Um, a whole lot of trucks. You've seen even on the freeways, especially in South Africa, where there's a whole lot of trucks carrying containers coming from the Durban side, going in country, or from in country going to the port. If you go to Durban on the N3, you'll see a whole lot of trucks with containers at the back, different sizes, going to the Durban port to offload for exportation. Okay. The next one, the next department is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, DTIC, previously known as the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry. So this one also has agencies. So this department has agencies, right, to assist them in country with their mandate. Excuse me. So they have. So this department offers a number of services. The first one I'm gonna mention is that they offer training to businesses that are looking to export, and this training is called GAP, Gauteng Exporter Passport Program. Yeah, Gauteng Exporter Passport Program, and they cover a number of topics, and the training is free of charge for resident businesses. Previously, they would invite businesses to the DTIC campus in Pretoria, and during COVID, when COVID hit, as you are aware, businesses had to radically move to virtual sessions, and they were doing virtual sessions. So I don't know now if that, and I know now they're doing hybrid or physical as well as virtual training sessions. So the DTIC's mandate is basically to promote local businesses, local manufacturers to international markets. And they do this in different ways. So they've got what is called outward missions. Outward missions is where they take a number of businesses to, say, another country, and they link and they invite businesses in that country. Let's say, for example, they are looking to penetrate Kenya. They're looking to help local businesses penetrate Kenya. So they take, say, 10 local businesses, take them to Kenya, with the partnership of the equivalent of DTI in Kenya. They bring in Kenyan businesses also in the same room, and then they'll have sessions there, and South African businesses will exhibit their products, and they'll present their products and businesses, and have like one-on-one sessions or whatever the case is. So this is a bit more focused. So the DTI also do international exhibitions where they take local businesses to different countries to go and exhibit. I'll speak about the international exhibitions some other time, which is very exciting, and I think they do great in this regard. So the agencies under the DTIC is so I'm based in Gauteng in South Africa. So a lot of these entities I've dealt with in Gauteng, and not in other provinces, because I've been in Johannesburg now for more than 20 years. So some of the agencies under the Department of Trade and Industry I'm going to mention. The first one is the GGDA, Gauteng Growth Development Agency, and they've got similar agencies in different provinces. So the one in Gauteng is called GGDA, and they work very closely with the DTI also to offer different types of services that I've mentioned to local businesses. The next one under the DTIC is ITAC, ITAC, International Trade Administration Commission. I think I got that right. They are based at the DTIC offices. So what ITAC basically does is they offer import and export control services. So they yeah, like I said, import and export control. So remember I mentioned that in the beginning that as a business, prior to importing or exporting, you need to have an import or export license. It's called a license, but it's people call it license, but it's actually registration. So you need that registration in order for you to do imports and exports. However, there are some products which require a permit on top of that from ITAC. So the things that require a permit, there are some products which are subject to ITAC's import permit, for example, such as your radioactive chemical elements, arms and ammunition. If you're going to import or export arms ammunition, you definitely need to apply to ITAC for a permit. Gambling devices and used goods, for example, used you want to import second-hand bicycles, second-hand buses. Before the ship sails, you need to have applied to ITAC for a permit. ITAC also sells tariffs and quotas. Hopefully I'll do a video about that one day. So you see, international trade, it is quite specialized, and it can be very deep, and it can extend to distances you cannot imagine. So everything that I've mentioned here just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So tariffs and quotas, I will speak about that one day. But basically, what they do in terms of quotas, let me just mention, quotas is where a country limits the amount of product imported from a certain country. Let me give you an example of China. Remember, there was a time when China was bringing tires into the country, and the tires were cheaper than the locally manufactured tires. So the local businesses were not able to compete with the Chinese imported goods as far as pricing was concerned, and the local businesses were struggling as a result. So now the government had to intervene and limit the amount of tires imported from China into South Africa. So then they did that rule of anti-dumping, right, from China. So so that's what they basically do. You know, they obviously offer other services, but I just wanted to give you on a high level what they do. Then the next one under the DTIC, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, is SABS, South African Bureau of Standards. So this is a government-owned inspection entity. They inspect goods for quality and quantity, right? If you in South Africa, you will remember many years ago where having anything, I think even today, having anything that is SABS approved, if your product has that SABS stamp, we know that it's been verified as far as quality is concerned. So there was a time where there was mattresses sold, and some were used SABS approval or stamp as a marketing tool or as a differentiating factor to say our mattresses are different or better because they are SABS approved. So it does give you the competitive edge to have that approval. So there are, however, privately owned inspection agencies, which I'm going to talk about in part 4 of this topic. The next one here, entity I'm going to mention here, is the ECIC, Export Credit Insurance. Export Credit, excuse me, I was on ECIC, Export Credit Insurance. Is it corporation or commission? So what ECIC does mainly is to provide cover for local manufacturers of capital equipment who are exporting, let's say exporting. So they cover them against non-payment by the foreign buyer. So if a South African business is manufacturing capital equipment and they're exporting to, say, Nigeria, right? They cover the local entity or local exporter against non-payment by the Nigerian company. That's what they do. The next government-owned entity I'm going to mention here is the Department of Economic Development. Very developmental in their nature. So they work very closely with the DTIC. They work quite closely with other departments as well to assist to development local businesses. They also are quite involved in other, not just only like businesses that manufacture or offer services, they're also quite involved in cooperatives because they do understand the mandate of cooperatives and how it can economically emancipate locals. So their mandate is development. The next one, municipalities. So municipalities also, from what I understand, they also have the mandate to assist the community by creating employment. So in municipalities, I saw one time a position advertised for international trade. I think it was director. Um, the role was quite aligned with the DTI's role, and I think Department of Economic Development. The role speaks to export promotion and foreign direct investment and things like that. So municipalities also, do get involved in supporting local businesses who are looking to export. We actually, as Destiny, were invited once to Vereniging by the DTIC, where they were presenting on a number of topics to Vereniging businesses who are producing different types of products. And the municipality there was actually quite passionate about the local businesses, and we tried to assist them to get what they need in order for them to get to the point where they can execute. But as small businesses have got many challenges and many hurdles which they need to jump. So I think a lot of them, it will take them some time before they can get to the point where they do their first export deal. The last one, very last one. No, not last. Oh gosh, not last one. I still have I still have one, two, three. I've got 4 to go. The next one is the Department of Agriculture. Very key department in this economy where South Africa is involved in primary production of products in the agricultural space. They offer quite a number of services also. So when you are exporting or importing agricultural products, normally the foreign buyer will request a phytosanitary certificate, and this certificate is issued by the Department of Agriculture to ensure that the product meets the health standards of South Africa and of the country that you are importing or exporting to. The Department of Agriculture have their own customs clearing agents for specifically for agricultural products. So, for example, at the airport, at the SAA, there's customs officials from Department of Agriculture who are there specifically for clearance of agricultural products. They also offer health certificates, right, on agricultural products and other certificates that you may need. So if you are dealing with agricultural products, could be plants or animals, and you are looking to import or export, it's best to check with the department what documentation you might require. The next one here is SEDA, Small Enterprise Development Agency. Very, very involved in training, upskilling, and developing small businesses, and doing a lot to assist small businesses to get them to the point where they can export. They provide a lot of training. They deliver a lot of content virtually now. I think they use Zoom. So just go to the website and see and connect with them so that you can be on board the next sessions. So they have Destiny was also has done a session on, I think it was a concept of international trade. A lot of questions coming from the small businesses that attended the session. So SEDA has a partnership with SheTrade, which is so SheTrade is in partnership with ITC, International Trade Center, which is part of the United Nations, and they specifically are focusing on women and trying to get women to collaborate and trade amongst each other. So they offer a whole lot of training together with SheTrade for women businesses and other small businesses. SEDA also has a program called Export Readiness Program. So it's sort of like an incubation. So if you are a local business and you're looking to manufacture at some point, I suggest that you sign up for this Export Readiness Program, so that they can assist you to help you get your ducks in the row. And remember, this is at no cost to you as a South African business. The second last one here is no, the last one actually, it's SETAs. The SETAs, which is a Sector Education and Training Authorities. So now this is now the training side of international trade, where in South Africa we have more than 20 SETAs. So you have SETAs in various sectors. You've got SETA in banking, SETA in transport. You've got SETAs in finance. You know, there's many. So Destiny is currently accredited by TETA, which is Transport Education Training Authority, one of the SETAs, to provide a national certificate in freight forwarding and customs compliance. So there's 10 core subjects which we offer training for under freight forwarding and customs. And I think I would like to go through these core subjects on a very high level, just to give you a taste of what they entail. Very exciting. Now this is more on the freight forwarding and the customs side of things. The customs side being very key, because if your customs documents are not in order, your goods are likely to not be cleared. You will have issues, and it will cost you dearly for being non-compliant. So that's it for today's session. Please like and share. The next one, which will be the last one, part 4 of the structure of the international trade industry, I will zoom into the private sector. So thank you for watching. Cheers.